Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany is our very special guest today, Thursday, August 11th, 2022. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching Breakfast with Tiffany, a monthly live video podcast right here on our Facebook page with our representative, where we discuss all the goings-on in Washington, D.C., and, of course, in the 7th Congressional District. We do these once a month, typically on the second Thursday of each month. You can find a recording of all of our previous Breakfast with Tiffany shows on our website at DrydenWire.com. Of course, right here on Facebook under our videos tab, but it's probably just easier going to our YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/DrydenWire. Also, if you have a question for the congressman, or if you have a topic that you would like for him to discuss or share his views on, let us know in the comments. Tom, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
So, election. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, did you know this week is the busiest tourism week in northern Wisconsin?
I did not. How would I know that?
Yeah, it is. So when you get just after the 1st of August, people go, they kind of get in a panic and they're like, oh, we got to do something with the family, with the kids and all the rest. We got to go do something because the summer's slipping away. And I sure understand that. Yeah, it's the busiest week is this week.
So that's it? It's the Labor... I'm sorry, so what is it this week? The busiest
tourism week in northern Wisconsin.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, Labor Day's coming up, right?
Oh, no, that's it. July and August are bigger than Labor Day.
What?
For the full week. For the full week.
Okay.
This is the busiest week.
Okay, so maybe not like a weekend or something.
No, for the full week.
All right. I had to clean that up. Don't want to get misquoted anywhere.
What are you going to do to have some fun?
I'm doing it right now. So there's some things I wanted to see like that. There's some things I wanted to talk about today. Obviously, I want to get your thoughts and views and takeaways on the election in Wisconsin. Get some of your thoughts about the election stuff and looking forward for the Congress and where we kind of stand there, what your thoughts on it, the Inflation Reduction Act. That's kind of a topical thing that's going on right now. And then, of course, your thoughts on the FBI raiding Donald Trump. And you had introduced a Grain for America Act. So I want to get to all that stuff. But first, is there something else that you would like to discuss? Because I don't want to leave that to the end this time. I want to start off with Tom's time. Is there something that you would like to talk about?
Hey, on Election Day Tuesday, I went up to Ashland. There was a great presentation that was put on by the United States Geologic Survey where they've got a boat and all kinds of just great technology that they're doing measurements of fish data, those type of things in Lake Superior. It was up on the docks in Ashland and spent the morning up there. It was really, really very interesting. And if you see the hat that I have on, it's a company called Sail Drone. And they actually put drones, it's a drone on that has a sail. And they put that out in the water, and it's able to do measurements for like fish census and stuff like that. So really, the technology has changed the world, right? Especially over the last 20, 30 years. It's incredible. All those changes in technology.
Hold on a second. So
it goes for that too.
A drone typically is in the sky. A sail, I just always think of water, like a sailboat, a boat. So which one is it? So it's a drone that goes up in the sky or is it on the water?
No, from what I heard, they call it a sail drone, that it's just on the surface of the water and it does these measurements. Sweet. And so I just got to see a snapshot of it. People can look it up, but I thought it was pretty interesting.
That is interesting. And right here in the 7th Congressional District. Boom.
Yep.
Okay, what else is going on in your life?
Oh, just as you alluded to at the top here, of course, we had elections in Wisconsin this week, and, interesting time with the primaries. Now those are sorted out. We had lots of candidates running for lots of offices, and now that's pared down, and we get down to the real work of the general election coming up in November.
Yeah, so let's start right there with your first. Before we look forward, how about we look just from last Tuesday? What were your biggest takeaways, specifically in the Wisconsin election, of course, because the Democratic primary, at least from state races, and actually in Northwest Wisconsin, actually Northwest, I don't think there was anyone in the Assembly or Democrat that had a primary opponent. or Assembly or Senate that were Democrats had a primary opponent. So really, from the primary standpoint, to kind of what am I getting up and getting excited about to go and or to whom to vote for in the state races. The only one that was was the Senate race, but that was pretty much over 3 weeks ago when this Mandela's three primary opponents dropped out and endorsed him. So there really wasn't a lot there. So it was a very interesting Republican primary. What were your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, so on the Democrat side, while there was a couple contested races, not much, as has been happening now for over a decade, the Democrats largely clear the decks. They want to have their primaries taken care of ahead of time, and that's why you saw like Alex Lazary, Sarah Godleski dropped out of the election. I'm sure people talked to them and said, "Hey, you're not going to win. You should get out. We want to coalesce around Mandela Barnes." Because we got to do everything possible to be able to defeat Ron Johnson this fall. So they largely clear the decks, and that's what you see them do with most of these bigger races. They basically clear the decks at this point. On the Republican side, by the way, good morning to all those folks that are chiming in over there on the right side of my screen. And on the Republican side, we had really dynamic primaries. And, I think on the governor's race, clearly we saw once again President Trump makes a difference with his endorsement and something like that. Big part of the reason why Tim Michaels won. I actually think one of the sleeper issues is what happened on Mar-a-Lago Monday night when they went after, when the FBI raided his place down in Mar-a-Lago. I actually think that influenced some voters on Tuesday, where if they were sitting on the fence, I think they probably said, you know what? I don't like what they're doing to President Trump, raiding his residence like that, and I'm going to go with his guy. I think it had some influence. Did it make the difference in the election? Don't know, but I think it had a little bit of an influence. Lieutenant governor's race, Roger Roth ran a Senator Roger Roth ran a with like 7 opponents in the campaign. He stayed very focused on his home in the Fox Valley, in that area where there are lots of voters, and he turned out his people. And in a such a split up election with 7 or 8 different candidates, he really focused on his home turf, and he was able to bring it home with a fairly comfortable margin. I thought that race would be a little bit closer.
I really did
and then,
too.
Of course, yeah, of course, the Attorney General's race was extremely close between Adam Jarko and Eric Toney, and Eric Toney won narrowly. And the reason Adam Jarko lost is Karen Mueller, who's also from Northwest Wisconsin. And by the way, I don't discredit her for running. Anybody should be able to run. She chose to run. Those were Adam's voters that she got. And Adam would have won the race, I believe, if it would have been a 2-person race, Eric Toney versus Adam Jarko. But Adam, always a gentleman, immediately has endorsed Eric Toney and has just said, hey, I'm fully behind Eric Toney. Let's get behind him. Let's support him.
Yeah, I was asked about that race, Attorney General, because, of course, Adam is a friend of ours, so, of course, I'm going to endorse him. A week from now, Eric Toney's actually going to be on the show, which, fine, anyone can come on the show. It's not like I don't like Eric Toney. I don't know really anything about him, but Adam's a friend, so, of course, I'm going to support and endorse him. And he's a Northwest Wisconsin guy. I want to see those people, guy, girl, doesn't matter. I kind of want to see them representing us down in these state offices. But I echoed what you had said as well, that I don't think it was because he got in, really not formalized till January. The money was there, certainly. AFP's endorsement certainly helped. But really, it was that third opponent that kind of did him in. But still, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. They split the libertarian vote. They split the vote that for people that are very concerned about the COVID protocols over the last 2 years. That was a big issue for Karen Mueller, as it should have been. I agree with her on that. And I think, but they ended up splitting that vote. And as a result, Eric Toney was able to win. The other thing, Eric Toney does have the strength of being in more towards southeastern Wisconsin, being from Fond du Lac County. And the other thing that really benefited Eric Toney, and it makes a difference for many voters, is he's a current district attorney. He's a prosecutor. And in talking to people, that does make a difference to them. They do want to have, they like to have that experience if possible. And so I think that made a difference in the race also.
So you, of course, being a Republican, instead of the individual races or individuals, from a Republican point of view, if you're waking up or you woke up on Wednesday and you saw the results and whether your guy won or your guy didn't, if you're a Republican, what would be the biggest takeaway if you're a Republican? Was this a good primary? Is that, boy, now that I look at this, because you look at things differently than like I would or most people would, you probably look at different statistics or different, actually, no, this is really going to be good. If you're a Republican and you wake up Wednesday morning and see all the results, do you feel confident about November?
Oh, I think we can win in November. I think Tim Michaels can win. I think Eric Toney can win. I mean, I've taken a very close look at polling data across the country, and it includes Wisconsin here. There's about 20% of Democrats that are not excited about voting. And by the way, we're going to talk about Mar-a-Lago. It fits into that raid, what the Democrats are doing. But there's about 20% of Democrats are just not excited about voting this year, and rightfully so. Inflation, crime, high energy prices, the illegal border crossings, fentanyl coming to every state in the country, including Wisconsin. They're just not excited. Nothing is going well in the country at this point. And so as a result of that, I think we have a very good chance. Now, if they were to ask me, I would say to those leading candidates that won the primaries, make sure you're on the phone constantly reaching out to those people who may not have been on your side. You need to get those people on your side immediately and bring the party together, and let's go on to victory here in November. So, I mean, that's the thing that I would really look at is, and that's why it's good to hear Eric Toney's going to be on your program. You got to get all over the state and see lots of people. And I just think we have a great chance to be able to be to win these races, especially when you look at Governor Evers, who will be at the top of the ticket for them. Governor Evers is really Joe Biden. He's Wisconsin's Joe Biden,
Sure.
two peas in the pod. I mean, they're very similar and largely ineffective. And so it just gives us a great opportunity to be able to win. I would say just one other thing. Mandela Barnes is going to, people are going to see ad after ad that they're going to find out who their lieutenant governor has been for the last 4 years and who the United States Senate candidate is. I mean, you have a long history there where he disses just this year, the 4th of July. He's like, this is not an important date. He also has made it very clear that he supports defunding the police. He was there on the side of the rioters a couple years ago. I mean, this is really extreme stuff. And especially when you're in southeastern Wisconsin, when you see the record murder rate in Milwaukee, the carjackings that go on constantly. I mean, crime is out of control and it's spilling into the suburbs. And all you got to do is look at the Waukesha parade debacle where those 6 people were killed last year. That was because of a prosecutor that was light on crime. He had the prosecutor, district attorney in Milwaukee County. He believes in low or no bail, and he let this guy out on low bail. Mandela Barnes believes in that type of law enforcement, and the Wisconsin people are going to see that here in this election running up to November.
And I think that election is going to be, I think the money that's going to go into that Senate race is just going to be ridiculous. Because I'll ask you to basically confirm what I've read. And I don't remember where I read it. It was actually just this morning or last night. But it's kind of a general consensus anyway that in Congress right now, in the Senate, it's 50-50, right? In the Senate, in D.C.,
Yep.
that they're really looking at Ron Johnson, because he's currently in the seat, therefore this race, as it could be a deciding factor of who is going to end up controlling or having majority in the Senate. So they're going to be dumping money into it. That's what I was told. Do you agree with that?
Oh, you're going to see tens of millions of dollars. It's the same thing you see in the Senate, election after election, over the last couple of decades, especially the last decade, is because it's so close. And it makes a difference of whether legislation is going to pass or not. I mean, look at what's happened in the last year and a half. It was a 50-50 Senate, but the Democrats had the deciding vote. And man, they put through one of the most extreme agendas that we've seen, and we're about to vote on another piece of it in the House tomorrow. I mean, you're seeing legislation that will absolutely change America, and I would say to make it worse. And that's why these U.S. Senate seats are so important. And they've pulled out all the stops to take out Ron Johnson because that could be the deciding
Mm.
vote in the United States Senate for the next 2 years.
I want to get to that piece of legislation that you were just referring to, but first, to kind of wrap up here the elections, it's typically how this works, and everybody kind of knows how this works. This is supposed to be a red wave year. Right now in the House, where you are in your chamber, I think there's 9 more Democrats, 222, 230, 9 more Democrats than Republicans, I think, right? 222,
Correct, yes.
213, yeah, 9.
Yep.
Do you see, and not just, yay, Republicans, and of course we're gonna, do you see a realistic opportunity there for Republicans to get the majority in the House come November?
Hey, by the way, before I answer your question, Kevin says there's a youth in the outdoors event at the Richardson Sportsman Club in Clayton, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Shooting events. He does not give the date, but anyhow, people should check that out. Sounds like it's good stuff. I think we have a very good chance to be able to win back the House of Representatives. I think we have a very good chance to be able to win the majority in the United States Senate. But the voters are going to decide that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it works in America. Voters are going to decide. But when you look at what's going on here in America, I mean, we are not headed in the right direction on a whole bunch of fronts. And that's the message we're going to take to the American people. And what I've really emphasized, both to my team as well as when I'm out there talking on the stump, is that we're talking about solutions. You know what the problems are. It's how you're going to fix it. And you start by stopping the deficit spending. Stop the deficit spending. That's what's leading to these inflationary pressures. Why do we have high energy prices? Because we said we're no longer going to be energy independent. First action President Biden took on January 20th of 2021, and he continues to follow through to shut down production here in America. Now, it isn't just a flat-out shutdown, but steadily there's more and more projects that are being shelved. And then, of course, you have the border. I mean, it's real simple to be able to. It just takes the will to fix what's going on in the border, restart remain in Mexico, stop, catch, and release, build the wall. And you can largely get control and have border enforcement. You can largely get control of the border. And crime, you need to start backing the badge and having prosecutors actually prosecute crime. So this stuff is not hard. It's just having the will to do it. That's the message we're going to deliver to the people, though, in this election, is that this can be turned around. The direction we've went in the last year and a half is the wrong direction. Everyone can see it. Let's change it in November.
Well, and speaking of that, on Sunday, the Senate passed a bill. I think it was 50-50, so the vice president had to be the deciding vote, and now it's back to the House. I think that's what I'm referring to. That's going to be tomorrow. Is that the vote for tomorrow? It's the $740 billion Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, we'll be voting on that tomorrow in the House of Representatives. And I'll be flying out tomorrow morning and we'll cast those votes. I would expect that it's going to pass. Nancy Pelosi has had her fellow Democrats walking the plank on all of these big bills. But, let's be real clear what's going on here. There's a whole bunch more spending. There's a bunch more taxes, and it's going to lead to more inflation. I mean, that bill has the most disingenuous name.
I was going to say, but it says
seen.
Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah, they call it the Inflation Reduction Act. So they're not fully funding the increased spending. So there's going to be more borrowing, which has gotten us in this trouble. And so you're going to see more inflation. You're going to see this transformation that they want to go to intermittent green energy, which has given us the threat of blackouts here in Wisconsin for this first time in our history. It shifts production of those assets to be able to produce that green energy, wind and solar panels, to China. So we're going to enrich China even more. As they're building coal plants, as they're building nuclear plants, we're going with intermittent energy. But the part that may be the worst is the 87,000 more IRS agents. I mean, think about it. We need to have more IRS agents. I saw a piece of data where if this goes through and they hire all these IRS agents, there will be more IRS agents than we have Border Patrol agents, than we have. I mean, there's like two or more people with the in a couple other. I can't remember which agencies. I got to look that up. But anyhow, you're going to have far more IRS agents than we even have people that are patrolling our border, and with the damage that's doing to America. It's just crazy. And this whole notion they're not going to come after the middle class, I mean, that's just bunk. That is exactly where it's going to happen, because that's where the wealth is. The predicate for this bill is that we got to go after the billionaires. Well, make no doubt about it. They always say, let's go after the billionaires, but it comes for the middle class, because that's where the wealth is. People's homes, their 401ks, their pensions. That's where the wealth is, and they will eventually come after that with those 87,000 IRS agents.
So, what if I'm understanding this correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the policies, so anything that was a bill, so policies of this current administration, and we can even throw it in Governor Evers there or President Biden, but Congress mainly, but the policies over the last couple of years, probably in response to COVID, thus led to a lot of spending, which helped some people, but then also, hurt a whole bunch of others, including some of the people that it was trying to help. And a lot of people were saying, okay, be careful, this could lead to an inflation. And then, of course, it did. And then the response is, let's pass more policies and spend more money? Am I understanding that correctly?
That is exactly what's happening with the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which will not reduce inflation.
Well, there's three parts to this Inflation Reduction Act: taxes, healthcare, climate. You've already touched on the taxes. One of the bullet points I wrote down here was it puts a 15% minimum tax on corporations that earn more than $1 billion in annual profits. That sounds good, right? I mean, it just on the surface, fine. I mean, I don't know, because I'm not own a company with $1 billion. I don't know how much that hits anyone. Are you okay with that part?
So where does that go to? Where does that tax? Who ultimately pays for it? They're saying they're going to go after corporations. That goes to it goes on their expense sheet. They're going to pass that on. That's a cost of doing business, no different than their labor, the raw materials that go into their business. I mean, all those costs that go into the business, they have to pass them on. This comes back and hits the middle class. I mean, people should not be fooled by this sleight of hand that, oh gosh, this is just going to be dumped on corporations. Corporations pass on their costs to the consumer. So guess what? We get more inflation. The cost of goods and services goes even higher, because there's this tax that's now going to be passed on to us, the consumer. And who does that hit the hardest? It hits the lower and middle class the hardest, because they don't have the discretionary income to be able to absorb that. And make no doubt about it, this is really harmful stuff for people who are in the middle and lower classes.
But I feel like it's one of those, who cares? That's the rich. Look, I think if most people looked at it, it'd be, what is this, like the top 5%, 1%, or whatever the number is for these companies that make $1 billion in annual profits. I think it's easy to say, just go after them. They have the money, and we'll never be billionaires, so I don't care if you pass something to make it, they have to pay more, because I'll never be one. What do I care? But you're saying you should care.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come down and hit you. The good or service that they're producing, it will come down and get you. And by the way, you can go all the way back to the history of the income tax, which was put into law in the United States of America in 1911. And go back and look at the reasoning that was used for starting the income tax. We have to have these robber barons, these millionaires pay some taxes. Okay, that's fine. And people were like, yeah, that's a good thing. But where did those taxes eventually go to? And also remember, that big corporation that you're going after, they've got an army of lawyers and accountants that are shielding them from those taxes all the time. And do we, as the middle class or lower class people, are we able to hire those attorneys and accountants that can shield us? No, that's not what happens. Plus, they're going to take some of their wealth into tax-shielded investments like the intermittent energy. That's why you're seeing the billionaires put in the solar facilities. They're putting in the wind industrial facilities because they get the big tax credits for it. It really distorts the system. So not only are they not going to see the revenue come in from this because these rich people, these rich corporations are going to shield themselves, but also you have them putting it in investments in things like intermittent energy, which are going to cost us all more in the end, also via the cost of electricity and stuff like that.
Mm.
So it does not work, and the American people are going to feel the pain once again after this passes tomorrow.
So how does that work? So on this, and I can't remember what website this was from, just kind of bullet point. I think it was Axios or something. About that 50% minimum tax, corporations, it's projected to raise $258 billion over 10 years. Who comes up with that number?
So I don't know if that's the Congressional Budget Office. Perhaps they generated that number. I'm not sure where that number.
I was just wondering where that come from. So one thing, there was a healthcare here. The bill increases healthcare spending by $98 billion, primarily by extending enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies create through the American Rescue Plan by an additional 3 years. I don't understand what any of that means.
Yeah, so there were additional subsidies put in to Obamacare during the middle of the pandemic. When you saw all that spending that was going on, the trillions of dollars of spending, they put additional subsidies for people that are on Obamacare.
So I'm just going to assume that you're not going to be voting for this tomorrow.
No, because it's going to create more inflation.
Right.
It's going to push us more towards intermittent sources of electricity that are going to drive up our electrical bills, which are already happening. And the third thing is the IRS agents, 87,000 more IRS agents in America spreading across the country. That's at least one or two for every county. So Washburn County, where you're at right now, get ready.
Yeah, I already called my tax person yesterday and said, hey, would you mind tightening up all our stuff? I'm sure it's all fine, right? Because we just send in, here's our receipts, here's our stuff, and they do everything for our business. But I'm like, okay, we're probably going to get a call. Just because at some point, everybody's gonna.
I'm assuming most of our listeners know who Joseph Stalin was. Is that correct?
I would assume so.
Yeah, he was the dictator at this in Russia and what originated the Soviet Union. A very close confidant, I think I have this right, very close confidant of Joseph Stalin once said, "Show me the man and I'll show you the crime." And that's unfortunately where we're headed in America at this point with 87,000 more IRS agents. You don't think they're going to be pushed to go out and get after some people and be productive? Think about it. Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. It's a dangerous time when you're doing things like this, like doubling the size of the IRS.
Sure. I want to touch on two things here real quick. I still want to ask you about, you had introduced a bill called Grains for America, but I want to circle back to your thoughts on the FBI raids on Trump. This is a bureaucracy is what it is. But there's a lot of people who kind of get this feeling that some of the bureaucracy is becoming used as a political tool. Would you agree with that? And if so, why? And if not, why?
The FBI better show their work awful soon of what they are seeking to do and what they are getting. But let's be real clear here. This has become politicized. The FBI, the Department of Justice, and the Biden administration, they knew exactly what was going on here, and it was meant to provoke. And I would say it goes back to November of 2022. That's what this is all about. 20% of Democrats are not excited to vote this year. They know things are headed in the wrong direction. How do you get those people motivated? So, first of all, they would love nothing more than Trump supporters to do something like a January 6th or something like that. They would love to see something like that happen. Then they can say, see, this is what happens. These people are out of control. But they're trying to also get their voters to vote. And they have nothing to vote for with the Biden administration. What have they done right so far? Record crime, record illegal border crossings, record fentanyl deaths, record high energy prices, record inflation. They have nothing to vote for at this point. Afghanistan, a debacle when we left back in August. So they have nothing to vote for. So it becomes orange man bad. They're trying to get their voters to focus on Donald Trump to get them to turn out. And it's a
Okay.
very cynical worldview. And I'll add something there's some people out there scoffing at this. All you got to do is look at the Democrats' campaign committees out in Washington, D.C. They've been spending millions of dollars on Republican primaries, trying to decide, trying to put their thumb on the scale, deciding who the Republican candidates are. There are some Democrats around the country going, hold it, why are you doing this? Democrat campaign committees in Washington, D.C. We should be focused on just our Democrat races. They are trying to influence this election in every way, shape, or possible. And a big part of the message they want for November to motivate their reluctant voters to vote is Orange Man bad.
It's a good strategy. I mean, if you look at just this last election in Wisconsin, primary a couple days ago, and the Trump's endorsement, I think a week ago I'd heard someone say it's about if you Trump endorses you, it's like an 8 to 10 point bump for you right away. But look at what happened in Robin Vos, Speaker Vos. That was crazy. This other person just kind of flies in, and Trump gives him the endorsement, and the dude barely lost. I mean, should have been a blowout. That was incredible. So, yeah, for some reason, and I still don't understand. I literally do not understand. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't get how Donald Trump still has so much political influence 2 years removed from office. I don't know what it is. What's the allure? What's the reason? But for some reason, it is. So
Well,
I could see why he would be their number one, essentially their target, because he does have that much influence over our elections. You know what I mean? The influence.
Yeah. So to answer your question, why are people so upset? They see things like the raids on Mar-a-Lago. My colleague, Scott Perry from Pennsylvania, was stopped with his family on Tuesday, and the FBI, 3 agents, took his cell phone, and I'm sure they took all the data off from it.
Mm.
Why did they do that?
Mm-hmm.
You have the Department of Justice. I sit on the Judiciary Committee. Months ago, we had that hearing with the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, and we asked him, why are you using the Patriot Act to go after parents at school board meetings? People understand there's something fundamentally wrong here, where you're treating people as guilty until they prove themselves innocent. That's not how it works in America. And that's what has people so upset at this point, and why they believe the worst at this point with the FBI. And it's also why you're seeing some civil libertarians on the left. I would throw one person out that's very prominent, the former governor of New York State, Andrew Cuomo. He came out this week and he said, FBI and DOJ, you better show your work here, because what you're doing is unprecedented. And while he didn't say this, I will. I think J. Edgar Hoover is blushing at this point with the tactics that the Biden Department of Justice is taking at this point. And that answers to you why, in part, why President Trump has so much sway on the electorate at this point, is that people are deeply concerned about a whole raft of things, including their civil liberties.
We have a question here from Wayne. Can the people trust election integrity?
I sure hope so. I mean, there's been some good things that have happened here in Wisconsin. First of all, just the exposure of Zuckerbucks has been a good thing, and we expect that Zuckerbucks will not come in and try to privatize our elections again like they attempted to do in 2020. The ballot drop boxes can no longer be used. And I actually think it was while this person should be charged, I think it was an important event when the gentleman in southeastern Wisconsin, he requested the absentee ballot under the name of Robin Vos, which is illegal. I do not advocate for that. You should not do that. But he received the ballot. Doesn't that show a hole in our election system?
I mean, if that doesn't, I don't know what would.
Absolutely. And so I think exposing these things are very important. And I think that's the most important step in the right direction that's being taken to restore that election integrity. But I got to tell you, if you want to restore election integrity, you got to get a new governor, because all those election integrity bills were put on Tony Evers' desk and he refused to sign them.
All right,
What is he afraid of?
we're getting up against our time. I want to make sure I asked you. You had just announced a couple days ago, I think, that you introduced a Grains for America Act. What is that, and why did you introduce it?
Puts a 1-year moratorium on the Conservation Reserve Program, program that's been around for a long time that idles farmland. And President Biden actually put in place a component to this where you could opt out in the final year. He introduced that in, and President Biden rightfully said that we should be concerned, are we going to be producing enough food here in America, because we're seeing shortages around the world in places like Sri Lanka and just other places around the world. I mean, it's of great concern. And so I'm building on that to say, let's have a 1-year moratorium on putting productive farmland in the Conservation Reserve Program, because we need to grow all the food we can at this point, or we're going to see food shortages around the world.
Is this going to go anywhere? I mean, you introduced it. Is it going to go anywhere?
It won't go anywhere this session, but I think it's important to introduce it this session, and hopefully we can advance it next session when I hope we get the majority back, and then I'll really push to try to get this introduced, because we're doing a lot of things to idle farmland, including putting windmills and wind turbines and solar panels on productive farmland. This is another part of it. We need to be very careful about idling more farmland at this point, as we may be on the verge of global food shortages.
Tom, thank you so much. Is there anything that we covered quite a bit today? Is there anything, though, that you wanted to discuss that we didn't get a chance to during the show?
I think you did a thorough job this morning. We covered a whole lot of stuff.
I was up early this morning, like earlier than normal, so I over-prepared. I usually don't prepare at all for these. So I was actually a little ready this morning. Felt good.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Always good to talk to you. Looking forward to talking to people out on the campaign trail as we head up November. Hey, by the way, I should add one other thing.
Sure.
You know, what might have been a couple of the most important races for people in northern Wisconsin, and we didn't mention in the primary, was the 74th Assembly District.
Chans Green won that one.
73rd Assembly District. And 74th.
Angie Sapek won the 73rd, which is currently with Nick Milroy in that primary. Yep. And then 74th, that was Beth Myers, and both Nick Milroy and Beth Myers had announced earlier that they weren't seeking re-election, and there was a Republican primary, and Chans Green won that one. I don't remember his opponent's name, but yeah, there were some Republican local ones, including 2 sheriff's races as well. Nothing Democrat-wise, but yeah, I forgot. We should give them some props for that.
Yeah, those assembly races are important. Nick Milroy is retiring up in Superior. And as you mentioned, Angie Sapek won that primary, and Chans Green won the primary for the Beth Myers vacated seat over in Ashland and Bayfield counties. So those will be important races also coming up here in November. And people are going to be getting a lot of attention in the Northland here.
Yeah, talk about some money being spent. I mean, Nick Milroy, Democrat, and Janet Bewley, Democrat, and Beth Myers, Democrat. So Senate and 2 of the Assembly seats all are Democrats, and they all have announced that they weren't seeking re-election. And yeah, so I'm just going to guess that the Republican Party is going to be spending a lot of time and effort in these races in Northwest Wisconsin, which is great. We actually get some love up here. I love it.
Oh, they're going to be hotly contested races, and that's a great thing for the electorate. They're going to be able to choose who they think is best.
That's right. Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom. It's been a pleasure as always. We'll see you next month, huh?
Yeah, good to join you again, Ben.
Special thank you to our guest today, Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative, Congressman Tom Tiffany, for joining us. Next Tuesday, of course, Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back for our latest episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. And 1 week from today, I will be chatting with Republican candidate for Attorney General Eric Toney. So until then, I'm Dryden, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden. Thank you for watching and have a blessed day.